Hi. So today we have a special guest visitor. This is Elijah. We call him Eli, and he is almost 6 months old. This is my little boy. He is a handful, keeps me nice and busy, and he is the product of I have type 1 diabetes, obviously, and he is healthy as can be, happy boy. And so today I'm going to talk about what your pregnancy survival kit for having type 1 diabetes. All right, so I'm going to put this little guy off to the side, let him play a little bit. So first I want to talk about, all the fears and misconceptions out there about being pregnant with type 1 diabetes or with any type of diabetes. Steel Magnolias is a great movie. I really like it, but man, it's just not that way anymore. Pregnant type 1 diabetic women have very healthy, great babies all the time and also are healthy themselves. And so it's so much more rare now that there are complications, and it's very doable to have a healthy pregnancy. So Eli was born on July 2nd, so I was pregnant from last late fall until the spring. And so I was really terrified of being diabetic, of just dealing with pregnancy. I was just so scared of what could happen. But after going through it, and I think, as you go through it, I would be interested in other, diabetic women, what you think who have been pregnant. It just shows, it really can be done, and it's not as hard as you think, and it just requires diligence and some planning. So here are the things that should go in your pregnancy survival kit. Number one is a logbook. This was key. I actually have a log. It's a paper. I'll have to show it on here. And basically, at the end of every single day, it worked. This is the system that worked for me. I would just take about 1 minute or 2 minutes and write down my pre-meal and post-meal blood sugars for the whole day, my nighttime blood sugar. And next to those, I would also just jot down what I ate for each meal. And so that worked for me because I'm not very good at logging, in the middle of the day when I eat something or when I take my blood sugar. It's just a pain. So I like to just do it all at the end of the day, right before I go to bed, just write it down quickly. And by doing that, if you just write it down and then you're going to start seeing trends. And it's just helpful then when you go and meet with your diabetes team as well, then it's really clear on paper exactly what's happening with your blood sugars. And with that, it's helpful if you can eat around the same time every day. Just try to be fairly consistent in the times that you're eating, and then that way you can really see the patterns. So that's number one. Number two is a computer or phone to email your diabetes team. So I worked with a CDE, or a certified diabetes educator, that was also at my OBGYN. So I highly recommend that. That was so convenient. I would just see her when I went in to see my OBGYN each week. And especially at the beginning when I was so nervous, it was so nice just to contact her about any question that I had. If I was really worried I was having some high blood sugars, I would just email her. I would send her my blood sugars. I would ask her about any question that I had. And man, that just took some weight off of me, really helped support me. And eventually I wasn't bugging her quite as much because I was getting a better hang of it. But it is really important to have a great team and communicate with them often. The third thing that is great for your survival kit is a CGM, or a continuous glucose monitor. So I had the MiniMed. At the time, I was using the MiniMed continuous glucose continuous glucose monitor. And that was okay for a while. I have switched to the Dexcom since then because it just wasn't working for me. So half of my pregnancy, I actually didn't use a CGM because it just wasn't working. Every time I was putting it in, it just wasn't accurate enough, and it was so off that it was causing more problems, and it wasn't even worth it. So this is not a necessity, but having the Dexcom now it is so nice just to be able to glance down, have an accurate report of what your blood sugars are doing, and being able to catch those highs and lows early. So, highly recommend that for a very smooth pregnancy, although it can be done without it. And the last thing that I would recommend for your diabetes pregnancy survival kit is insulin, and a lot of it. So we already use insulin, obviously, but you are going to use so much more insulin, especially at the end of your pregnancy. So to give you a small idea, to give you a small idea of what your insulin needs are going to do at the beginning, you can see him kicking back there. At the beginning of your pregnancy, then often, at least this is how it was for me, it's going to vary a little bit from person to person. When I very first got pregnant, even before I knew, I actually had a little surge in insulin resistance. So I didn't know it yet, but I needed to take a little bit more. My blood sugars were spiking in the first few weeks. But then once you go more into the first trimester, then your blood sugars really drop. So at first, you actually have to lower your insulin quite a bit. But as you go into the second trimester, then your insulin resistance again increases and you start needing more and more and more insulin. And that continues to increase into your third trimester, so that you're taking, at least for me, it was at least double and even more insulin than I used to before. And my carb to insulin ratios had tripled. They had increased significantly just because your placenta is using up all of this insulin to feed the baby, and you need a lot more insulin for the food that you're eating. So at the very end of my pregnancy, my blood sugars my insulin needs decreased a little bit again as I was preparing to go into labor. And so I'm interested on your thoughts. I'll do another video about some other parts of pregnancy, but that's the gist of it. So I'm just going to recap there. For your survival kit, get a logbook, CGM, a computer or a phone, some way to email or communicate with your diabetes team, and lots of insulin. So hope that this helps. Good luck, and it is all worth it.